أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رسولا ونبيا. Inshallah, we're continuing on with the Prophet ﷺ's legendary military government legacy. The government military legacy of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the era of Sayyidina Umar bin Al-Khattab, after completing the era of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam's military legendary legacy, and 30 videos of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam's military legendary career. We're now on page number 176, the prior to the battle of the Qaadissiyy. Ghalib ibn Abdullah al-Laythi said, "O people, praise Allah for his blessing and ask him for more. Call on him and he will respond. O people of Mu'ad, what will your response be today when you have with you your horses and swords? Think of what people will say of you tomorrow, for you will be at the forefront tomorrow." Busr ibn Abi Rahm al-Juhani said, "Praise Allah and confirm your words with actions. You have praised Allah Jalla Jalaluhu for what He has guided you to, and you have affirmed His oneness and that there is no God besides Him. You have magnified Him and believed in His Prophet and messengers. Do not die except as Muslims. Nothing should be less significant in your eyes than worldly gains, for worldly gain comes to those who think little of it. Do not incline towards it, for it will run away from you and mislead you. Support the cause of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, and He will support you." Asim ibn Amr said, "O Arabs, you are the leaders of the Arabs and you are confronting the leaders of the Persians. What is at stake is nothing less than paradise. They should not be more eager for this world than you are for paradise." Rabi ibn al-Bilad as-Sa'di said, "O Arabs, fight for your faith and worldly gain and march forth in the way of Allah, which leads to forgiveness from your Lord and for paradise as wide as the heavens and earth, prepared for al-muttaqun, the righteous, pious ones." And all of them spoke similar words. The day of Armath dawned on the first day of Al-Qaadissiyy. Sa'ad gave his instructions to the army, saying, "Stay where you are and do not move until you have prayed Dhuhr. When you have prayed Dhuhr, I will say Takbir. So say Takbir and get ready. Remember that Takbir was not given to anyone before you, and it was only given to you as a support for you. Then when you hear the second Takbir, say Takbir and be ready. When I say the third Takbir, say Takbir and let your horsemen go forth against the enemy. When I say the fourth takbir, then all march forth until you meet your enemy and say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyul azim. There is no power and no strength except with Allah Jalla Jalaluhu." When Sa'ad had prayed Dhuhr, he ordered the slave whom Umar had told to stay with him, who was well versed in Al-Quran, to recite the Surah of Jihad, Surah Al-Anfal. He recited the Surah of Jihad to the squadron that was closest to him, and it was recited to every other squadron too. It raised the people's morals, and they were filled with tranquility when it was recited to them. When the reader had finished, Sa'ad said Takbir, and those who were around him said Takbir in response to his Takbir. And the people said Takbir in response to one another's Takbir, and the people moved forward. Then he said the second Takbir, and the people got ready. Then he said the third Takbir, and some horsemen went forward to fight. Men of similar rank from among the Persians came out to meet with them and they exchanged blows, blow after blow. The Muslim champions such as Ghalib ibn Abdullah al-Asadi, Asim ibn Amr al-Tamimi, Amr ibn Ma'adi, Kariba al-Zubaydi, and Tulayha ibn Khawaylid al-Asadi had great impact, dealing a heavy blow to the enemy by killing some and capturing some of the enemy's champions. Whereas none of the Muslims were killed during the single combat. Single combat is one of the most difficult arts of warfare, which only a few champions among men do well. It boosts the morale. It boosts the morale of the victors and increases their courage, and it demoralizes the losers and makes them lose heart. The early Muslims excelled in the art and were always superior to others, hence they were the ones who benefited from it. Whilst the people were waiting for the fourth takbir, the infantry leader of Banu Nahd, Qais ibn Hudayn ibn Jarthuma, stood up and said, "O Bani Nahd, rush upon the enemy in Hadu. You are called Nahd, so act upon your name." Khalid ibn Urfuta sent word to him, saying, "By Allah, control yourself, or I should appoint someone else instead of you." Then he calmed down. Rustam orders some of his troops to attack. When Rustam saw the Muslims were superior in single combat and in driving their enemies, he did not wait until the plan of their leader for more single combat. He did not wait until the plan of their leader for more single combat was completed. Rather, he ordered some of his troops to launch a general attack on the division of the Muslim army that was composed of Banu Bajila and those who were with them. This attack was something strange because the Persians directed nearly half of their army against a section that represented only a small part of the Muslim army. This indicates that they were desperate to put a stop to the single combat in which they had failed. Thus, Rustam's attacked one flank of the Muslim army with 13 elephants, each of which was accompanied, according to the Persian military system, by 4,000 warriors, including both foot soldiers and horsemen. The elephants scattered among the Muslim squadrons, but the attack focused on Bajila and those who were with them. The foot soldiers, who were known for their courage, stood firm against the Persian assault. Saad commands Asad to go to the aid of Bajila. Saad saw what was happening to Bajila, so he sent word to Banu Asad telling them, "Go to the aid of Bajila and the people who are with them." Tulayha ibn Khuwaylid, Hamal ibn Malik, Ghalib ibn Abdullah, and Aribayil ibn Amr set out with their squadrons. Al-Marur ibn Suwaid and Shaqil said, "By Allah," they charged at them and kept stabbing and striking until we managed to get the elephants away from them. Then a powerful man of theirs came out and engaged Tulayha in single combat. But Tulayha soon killed him. When the Persians saw what the squadron of Asad was doing to their elephants, they launched a heavy attack against the Muslims. Though Al-Hajib and Jalinus, two of the Persian leaders, launched a coordinated attack on the Muslims, whilst the Muslims were still waiting for the fourth takbir from Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, the commander of the Muslim army itself. Then the Muslims moved forward. The Persian forces gathered around Asad along with those elephants, but Asad stood firm. Sa'd said the fourth takbir, then the Muslims moved forward towards them, whilst the attack on Asad continued, and the elephants moved against the Muslim horses from the right and the left flanks. The horses were terrified by the elephants, so the horsemen asked the foot soldiers to push their horses forward towards the elephant. Sa'd tells Banu Tamim to tackle the elephant. Sa'd sent word to Asim ibn Amr at-Tamimi saying, O Tamim, are you not keepers of camels and horses? Do you not have a way to deal with these elephants? They said, yes, by Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Then they called some of his people who were archers and others who were skillful and agile and said to them, O archers, target the riders of the elephants with your arrows. And he said, O skillful and agile ones, go around the back of the elephants and cut their ropes so that the boxes which carry the fighters will fall. The fighting was focused on Asad, but there was fighting in the right and the left flank as well. The champions of the companions of Asim, went to the elephants and took hold of their tails and the ropes. They cut the ropes and the elephants started trumpeting. There was no elephant left that day, but the boxes had been thrown off and the fighters that were in them were killed. Fighting broke out everywhere, thus relieving the pressure on Asad and pushing the Persians back from them. The fighting continued until sunset and into the early part of the night. Then both sides fell back. That day there were 500 casualties among Asad alone, who had been in the forefront of the army. Asim and Banu Tamim had been shielding the people. That was the first day, which was known as the day of Armath. The heroic attitude of Tulayha ibn Khuwaylid, the command of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, had an effect on Banu Asad on that day. Tulayha ibn Khuwaylid said, O my tribe, our leader has great faith in you. If you knew that there was anyone who was more able to go to the aid of these people, he would have sent them. Charge at the enemy, go at them like fierce lions. You are called Asad lions, so be as fierce as lions and never flee or turn back. Go forward and do not retreat. What a good job Rabi'a is doing. Charge at them in the name of Allah. His word had an amazing effect on his people, motivating and energizing them. They were on their own in the battlefield until Banu Tamim came to their aid, and they sent forth that day 500 martyrs, shuhada. The tribes were impressed by the heroic courage of Banu Asad, and Al-Ash'az ibn Qais al-Kindi said, O Kinda, what a good job Banu Asad are doing. So Kinda moved from the defensive to the offensive and drove back the Persians who were in front of them. The field hospital was located in Al-Udayb, where the women folk and the Mujahideen were staying, waiting patiently and seeking reward with Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. They received the wounded and treated them until the decree of Allah concerning them was fulfilled. In addition to that, they had another mission in which the children helped them, namely digging the graves of the shuhada, the martyrs. Treating and nursing the wounded is in tune with women's aptitudes, whereas digging graves is a tough job, but the men were busy fighting in the jihad, so the women had to do their job out of necessity. They were qualified to do so because of their faith and their patience. The martyrs were moved to the valley of Musharrif, which is between Al-Udayb and Ain Ash-Shams. The cessation of fighting between the Muslims and their enemies that night gave some of the Mujahideen the opportunity to visit their families in Al-Udayb. Khansa bint Amr urges her sons to fight on the night before the battle. In the Muslim women camp in Al-Udayb, Al-Khansa bint Amr, the poetess of Banu Sulaym, whose career straddled the Jahiliyyah and Islam, sat with her 4 grown sons, urging them to fight. She said, you became Muslim willingly and migrated by choice. You know what Allah has promised of great reward to the Muslims who fight the kuffar, the kafirin, the iblisi allies, and you know that the realm which abides is better than the realm which is passing away. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu says, O you who believe, endure and be more patient than your enemy and guard your territory by stationing army units permanently at the places from where the enemy can attack you, and fear Allah Jalla Jalaluhu so that you may be successful. Surah number 3, ayah number 200. If you wake up safe and sound tomorrow, insha'Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, then go and fight your enemies, seeking Allah's support against his enemies. When you see the fighting grow intense, then go forth. If you do that, you will gain booty and honor in the hereafter. A woman of An-Nakhl encouraged her sons to fight as well. A woman from An-Nakhl had 4 sons who participated in the battle that day. When dawn started to break, she said to them, you became Muslims and did not change, and you migrated, but you did not migrate to Yathrib al-Madinah. Then you brought your elderly mother and put her in front of the Persians. By Allah, you are the sons of one man, just as you are the sons of one woman. I did not betray your father, and I did not cause any shame on your maternal uncles. Go and participate in the battle from the start to the finish of the battle. So they left her that way, hasting to join the battle. When they had left her, she raised her hands toward the heaven and said, O Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, protects my sons. After that, they came back to her having fought well, and not one single one of them was wounded. These are the attitudes of some of the elderly women on the first day of Al-Qaadissiyy, the day of Aghwath. The day of Aghwath was the second day of Al-Qaadissiyy. On this day, a division of the Syrian army led by Qaqa ibn Amr at-Tamimi arrived in the nick of time. The Khalifa Umar radiallahu anhu had ordered the governor of Syria, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah radiallahu anhu, to send the army of Khalid ibn al-Walid that had left before to go to Syria and were in Syria back to Iraq to support the Muslims in Al-Qaadissiyy. So he sent them, but he kept Khalid ibn al-Walid himself with him because he needed him there in Syria. He appointed Hashim ibn Utbah ibn Abi Waqqas, the nephew of Sa'd, in charge of this army. When they had come from Iraq to Syria under the leadership of Khalid ibn al-Walid, they had been 9,000 strong. Now 6,000 of them were returning to Iraq. Hashim ibn Utbah appointed Qaqa ibn Amr over the vanguard, which was composed of 1,000 warriors. The heroic exploits of Qaqa ibn Amr. Qaqa hastened along with the vanguard until he reached the army in Al-Qaadissiyy on the day of Aghwa. During his march, he had come up with an idea to boost the morale of the Muslims. He divided his army into 100 sections, each of which was formed of 10 men, and told them to come one group after another. Every time one group disappeared from the view, they sent another 10 after them. He went forth with the first 10. Then they came in groups, one after another. Every time Qaqa looked towards the horizon and saw another group coming, he would say, Takbir, Allahu Akbar. And the Muslims would join in and were encouraged to continue fighting their enemy. This strategy succeeded in raising the morale of the fighters, the Mujahideen, for the arrival of 1,000 men is not regarded as a large reinforcement for an army of 30,000. But this idea, to which Allah Jalla Jalaluhu had guided Qaqa ibn Amr at-Tamimi, made up for the small number of reinforcements and strengthened the resolve of the Muslims. He gave them the good news of the arrival of more troops and said, O people, do what I do. He went forward and called out, who will fight with me in a single combat? They said concerning him what Abu Bakr has said, no army will be defeated among whom there is a man like Qaqa ibn al-Amr at-Tamimi, and they felt happy with him. Though Al-Hajib came out to meet him, and Al-Qaqa asked him, who are you? He said, I am Bahman Jadawain. At this point, Al-Qaqa remembered the calamity that had befallen the Muslims on the day of the bridge at the hands of this commander. He was seized with Islamic zeal and called out vengeance for Abu Ubaid, Sulayt, and the companions of the bridge. Even though this Persian commander was renowned for his bravery, his courage must have failed him when he heard this cry. Abu Bakr had said of Qaqa, the voice of Al-Qaqa, in an army is better than 1,000 men. How could a man withstand it, no matter how brave and steadfast he was? Hence Al-Qaqa soon slew him in front of his troops. His killing in this manner had a great effect of unnerving in the Persians and raising the morale of the Muslims, because he was the commander of 20,000 Persians. Then Al-Qaqa called out again, who will fight with me in a single combat? 2 men came out to meet him, and one whom was Al-Bayrazan and the other was Al-Bandawayan. Al-Qaqa was joined by Al-Harith ibn Zabyan ibn Al-Harith, the brother of Banu Tamim al-Lat. Al-Qaqa fought with Al-Bayrazan and killed him. Ibn Zabyan fought with Al-Bandawan, who was one of the champions of the Persians, and killed him. Thus, at the beginning of the day, Al-Qaqa finished off 2 of the 5 Persian commanders. Undoubtedly, that threw the Persians into confusion. 2 horsemen from each side met in combat, and Qaqa started saying, O Muslims, use your swords and reap the harvest. The people started passing on this advice to one another and rushed at the enemy and continued fighting until evening came. The narrators state that Qaqa launched 30 charges. Every time he saw another group coming, he launched another charge, and the last one who was killed was Burz Jamhar al-Hamadani. Alba ibn Jahsh al-Ujali disemboweled during the battle. A man from among the Persians appeared before the troops of Bakr ibn Wa'il and called out, who will fight with me in a single combat? Al-Alba ibn Jahsh al-Ujali went out to meet him. Al-Alba struck the Persian and a blow in his chest that damaged his lungs. Then the Persian struck him a blow in his belly, and his intestines spilled out and fell on the ground. The Persian died at once. As for Alba, he was able to stand. He tried to put his intestines back in place, but he could not. A Muslim man passed by him, and Alba said to him, Hey, you, help me with my belly. So he helped put his intestines back into his belly. Then Alba held the 2 sides of the wound together and marched towards the Persian ranks without looking back at the Muslims. Death caught up with him 30 cubits from where he first fell, and he died, saying, I was one of those who did well in battle, and I hope that this will bring me a reward from my Lord Jalla Jalaluhu. A man from among the Persians came out, saying, who will fight with me in a single combat? Al-Arath ibn al-Alam al-Uqayli came out to meet him and killed him. Then another came out to fight him, and he killed him. Then the horsemen surrounded him and threw him down. He dropped his weapon, and they took it. So they threw dust in their faces until he got back to his companions. The sacrifices made by the 4 sons of Al-Khansa The four sons of Al-Khattab made the ultimate sacrifice on that day. They went out to fight with zeal, and each of them recited ayahs to encourage himself and his brothers. They went out in turn and fought until they were martyred. When the news of their death, their martyrdom, reached Al-Khattab, she said, "Praise be to Allah who has honored me by their death. I hope that my Lord will reunite me with them by his mercy." Inshallah, we will stop here on page number 187. It appears that the Battle of Qaadissiyy is quite a stretch. However, there are many lessons and morals to be learned even after the Battle of Qaadissiyy. So we still have some more of the Battle of Qaadissiyy, and then we will continue on into other battles and conquests during the era of Sayyidina Umar bin Al-Khattab before we actually get to his demise. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik wa tabaraka asmu rabbik wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali al-azim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.